Hi, it's Rebecca Edney from eclecticendeavors.blogspot.com. Today we're going to be making a surprise shaker card. So to start with, you're going to need some acetate. You're going to need a piece of white cardstock cut into a card base, and also two separate pieces of 4¼ by 5½. You're going to need your MISTI tool, some thin double-sided adhesive. You're going to need 3 dies in a nesting set. You need either squares or rectangles. You're going to need your stamps, some inks, which apparently I showed to my bosom, a die for a little tab, your crocodile, sorry. Yeah, and that's your Cuttlebug. So now we're going to get to stamping. We're going to actually need to stamp the front of the card base, and also your 2 other panels. So that was just the card base I did. This is the other panel. And now you need one more. I actually didn't show it. So now I'm stamping the second layer on both pieces. And again, you do need to do your 3rd layer. I just didn't bother showing it. Now here's your dies. You're going to use the 3 in a row of your nesting dies. Now you need the largest and the smallest, and you're going to tape them together so they make a frame, and die cut that centered from one of your panels, not from your card front. And it's going to look like that because of the magic of television. Okay, so now you're also going to use those 2 frame dies, and you're going to cut a piece of fun foam, which I did ahead of time to save time. And set that aside for now. Now you need the largest die only, and you're going to cut that from acetate, which I also did ahead of time. Put all that stuff away, keep it out of my space while I'm working. Now this is the medium die. And this one we're going to do some partial die cutting with. So you're going to die cut it centered, but do not cut all the way through the top piece. You're going to see when I roll this through my Cuttlebug that I have the die outside the cutting plate, so that part will not cut. If you have a die that actually works for this size, then you can go ahead and use that. I'll put the measurements up on the screen. And now you want to trim away the excess on the parts you've already cut. That's going to help you line up the die. In my case, I'm using a stitch die, and I want to line up the stitching. So now you're going to move your die towards the top, as far towards the top as you can. And as I said, I've lined up the stitching so that I don't get one giant stitch in one place because it's too close together. So I've lined it all up perfectly, and now I'm only going to cut the top part, not the bottom. See how the bottom is sticking out? So that's partial die cutting. This is going to give me a longer panel than I would have had otherwise just using that die the way it is. So now we're going to do some stamping on the panel we just cut. I started out with that sentiment, and now I'm adding lots of little stars in a whole bunch of pastel colors. Takes a little while to do this, so I sped it up for you. I'm sure you can figure out how to stamp some little stars if you're making the same card as I am. I use some Altenew inks, basically the softest one in each set. I'll list them at the end. Okay, so now we're back with the card base. And this frame is going to become the shaker window, and I want to know approximately where I need to stamp so I don't stamp things too far out. And I can balance them nicely within the space that I have. This is going to be hidden at the end. So keep that in mind. Your frame is going to cover up the stamping on the outside. So the outside edges don't have to be perfect, but you don't want them to go over onto the outside edges as well beyond the frame. So I'm going to start with some balloons. Again, I sped this up because you all know how to stamp. And again, I was using the same colors as I used for the little stars on the front. Some of these needed to be stamped twice, which is why I'm using my MISTI. Sometimes with a solid stamp like this, it really helps to be able to stamp it twice if you don't get perfect ink coverage. That one seemed to be okay. But at least a couple of them need to be stamped again. I think that one's one of them, yep. So just arrange the balloons wherever you would like them to be. Obviously, if you were changing this and you were saying it's a girl or it's a boy, you could have balloons all appropriately colored for a boy or a girl. And now you want to put your sentiment down at the bottom. Of course, you don't have to do that, but I wanted to do that so that when the shaker goodies are inside the shaker part, then they're going to cover that up and the person has to shake it to see what it says. I think that's even more of a fun surprise than just removing the front panel. So now I'm masking off some areas that I don't want to have those balloon strings touching. I actually made this card once to try it out and I got balloon strings past the edges. So I'm sure somebody who saw that would be wondering what on earth is there strange lines on the outside of that frame. So that's why I'm warning you to make sure you mask things off. So just keep adding your balloon strings here. Yeah, sometimes I didn't get my mask in quite the right place. It's a little fiddly, this. All right, so just stamp this inner portion however you like. Again, trying not to go beyond where the frame is going to go. Now we're back to the secret panel on the front. We're just going to add a little tab to the top of that so it can be pulled out. If you wanted to work from a bigger piece of paper and just have that piece be longer, you could. I just thought it worked out well this way. Now we're going to put everything together. So we've got our outside frame and we're going to put adhesive on that. Now you absolutely need this skinny double-sided tape. I'm using 1/8 inch score tape to be towards the outer edges, because our panel is going to slide up and down in there, and if we put too much adhesive on, it's not going to work. Now with the acetate and the foam, I had stitching dies to help guide me, but I trimmed just a little bit off. For some reason, when I made this card before, the little bit of the plastic showed, and I didn't really like the way it was shiny against the matte of the rest. And I do the same with the fun foam because for some reason it seems to stretch and it seems to stick out also beyond the edges of the frame, and I don't like that look. So rather than trim it later, I trim it now. And again, those stitching edges on the dies make it very easy. So now I'm just peeling off the adhesive so I can put my acetate on. Now you notice I only put adhesive on 3 sides. That's really important. You absolutely have to leave the top edge open or this whole system isn't going to work. So now with this piece of foam, it's kind of wide, so I put some tape on the outside of it, but mostly you need the tape on the inner edge to seal in your shaker contents, and just a little bit of adhesive here or there to keep it from, flapping around because it is fairly wide. So I'm going to do that on both sides. Just some little pieces on the outer edge and full coverage on the inside edge. I have to tell you guys, I just caught my little 5-year-old saying a bad word. And when I asked him what he'd said and he told me, it was all I could do to keep from busting out laughing because he said it so funny. I won't tell you what the word is because I don't say that word either. My middle son probably taught it to him. Oh dear, what can you do, right? Okay, so this part's really boring, but unfortunately, adhesive has to go on and adhesive paper bits have to be picked off. It's very thrilling. If you have a faster way to do it, do tell me. I would love to know. I don't think there is one though. Liquid glue is a little faster, but then it can ooze out into your shaker area and make all your sequins stick and leave blubs on your acetate, so that's not good either. So here I was going to put that down, and then I realized I actually prefer to do it flipped over. And there we go. We want to line that middle up, and because we trimmed the outside edges, you shouldn't have to worry about the outside edges lining up at all. Just line up the middle. And I like to be very precise even when I'm doing a video. I don't know why. I can't seem to just chuck stuff together. There was some eraser bits stuck to that acetate. I'll take care of that later. Okay, so pack all your sequins in there. I already had a nice little mix of pastels and white. A few beads thrown in, a few stars, and a few hearts. More picking off adhesive, and you want to center that, making sure that your stamping lines up. And we're almost done. So now lift up. There should be a gap now between your paper and your acetate. And you should be able to slide that right in. It is a little stiff the first couple times going in, and you do have to pull up that little bottom piece to get it in there. But it should line up perfectly because of the way we die cut it. And there we are, ta-da! Now I put a little piece of ribbon on that tab. And you notice the shaker contents go to the bottom, covering up that sentiment. Thanks for watching. I hope you really like this card, and I hope you'll subscribe to my YouTube channel and come by my blog. Thanks!